Welcome back to another Trade Alts technical analysis video. It's been a while since my last public update, so I wanted to jump on here, do a quick Bitcoin analysis. I'm going to really focus on the low time frame range that we're kind of seeing here, do a few altcoins, and then at the end of the video, I do want to give an update on trading bots and, as far as, what I think of, how the market is doing, how the bots are doing, and give a little insight to what I am currently doing with my trading bots. So that being said, let's get to the video. All right, so here we have Bitcoin, 15-minute chart. And this is, for those of you in Discord, this is the mini range that I've been talking about. So you're going to get to see this a lot, even more greater detail. But basically, we had price kind of make its way down here. You can see this, the top of this horizontal channel that I have here, which is basically this solid white line. You see the midpoint of the channel here and then the channel low. But the top of the channel, this is a really pretty important support resistance level on its own. So you have it as support, support, support. It actually breaks down and comes to what is the midpoint of this channel going forward, and then actually reclaims this level. You test it as support, support, you get a push up higher before you come back down, lose it, and we've been in this mini range ever since. So that's kind of how we arrived, basically when we flushed down to the bottom here, made this range. And excuse me while I turn my phone off. But we, basically flush down here and form this range that we've been in. So we've had a few things happen. I mean, just looking at this range here, it looks choppy to most people, but what I see is a lot of really nice trade opportunities for scalp traders. I think, we like just take it from the bottom of this channel to the top of this channel. It's almost a 4% range. So, that's not very big by most standards, but if you're trading with leverage, you're trading scalps, you can do a lot of damage in a 4% range. I'll tell you that. So, but anyway, we came down here to form the range. We've been chopping around ever since. You can see your value area low, point of control, value area high, which currently your value area high is actually really, really nice resistance at the moment. But I do want to talk through a couple of things. I did a live stream with the VIPs earlier, and I kind of went over this trade already, but I wanted to go over it for the public as well. So again, we've had numerous rotations from, even if you're just looking from the value areas alone, we've had numerous rotations. And specifically one trade that came up, like one really nice opportunity here is what I wanted to focus on. So we had price, essentially you had your value area high, came down to your value area low, another rotation of value area high, came down, tested your golden pocket here, and a really nice impulsive move up to your big, and I label this the big range value area low. But why this level is so important is because this is the value area low for the entire range. And I'm talking about the range that we've been trading in for the last 2 months. So this level here is a very, very important level as far as the last couple of months of price action goes. So definitely something that you should be aware of. But anyway, we had this nice impulsive move. We came up right basically to the top of this channel that we've been in. You have your again, the value area low of the last 2 full months of price action, so critical level. And then to top that off, we also had your golden pocket of this swing high here at 33,190 all the way down to your low, your swing low of $31,020. Came right up into this golden pocket here. And there's also another confluence here. You had an R2 daily pivot that was sitting right kind of in this general zone. So there was quite a few reasons here for you to, for us to be like considering this level quite a bit of resistance, right? Like this is a really important resistance zone. And basically what price did, you had a nice wick through, If you kind of zoom in here, you can see we got a wick through, close below, we're closed below the channel, basically sitting right at your big range value area low. And then price drifted down, from here. So basically when I was doing the update, I think we were right around here for those of you in Discord. But anyway, or when I was giving these levels, so I gave an update in Discord and I was telling, which specific levels to watch for, which specific levels we don't want to lose. And particularly this value area high was a really important level because it's the value area high of this mini range. So it's a very, very important level. And you can see previous to us breaking out on this impulsive move and testing, these the resistance levels up here, the value area high was resistance, 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 back down before breaking through. So what do you look for when you have, when you have a resistance level, resistance level, resistance level, like this is telling you very clear cut resistance, you end up getting your push through. So when you come down for your back test, you really want to see that held as a support, right? So you want to see this form of resistance. Once it's pushed through, you want to see, if it's tested, you want to see it held as a support level. And, there was obviously, you did get a bit of a reaction here, but ultimately this ended up being, if you didn't catch this level up here as far as a short trade, like seeing the resistances that are up here, this was a very, I would argue this is a very nice short trade as well. Because again, we come back down to test this level that you are hoping is going to be a support level, and you get a little bit of a bounce and ultimately fails though. And then so you get obviously the fail, right? So you see price gets acceptance below the value area high again, back test. So now you're seeing, this gave you an hour, right? You see multiple back tests confirming that this is indeed resistance yet again. This is a nice entry to take for a short trade. And when you're trading these levels, typically, if you're going to short value area high, like basically a loss of value area high, two real levels that you're looking for, your point of control, and then your value area low. So these are kind of like your two, main targets that you will look at. And then, if you had any left on the rest of your trade, you could let it run, obviously. And ultimately, your invalidation for this, and why I like trades like this quite a bit, is because where are you wrong on this trade? Well, essentially, if value area high is reclaimed and you see price start, price is holding above this level again, then you know that you're probably wrong. Like your thesis for taking this trade essentially is invalidated, so you can exit your trade. Obviously you probably take a small loss there, but the nice thing about it again is it's so close, like your entry and your confirmation here is so close to where you could be wrong, right? So you're not really risking a lot to find out, if this trade is going to be wrong or not, but you have nice space to the downside in order to let your trade run, right? Ultimately played out pretty nicely. You got your point of control touch, chopped around here for a little bit before ultimately failing your point of control again, and you got a big move to the downside. I mean by big, on the mini range terms, this is a big move. Coming down to test the bottom of your horizontal channel that we're in, and there's S1 daily pivot there as well. So this is something that I really wanted to talk through. And then obviously we're kind of eyeing CME Open, and I had said in Discord that I don't expect, any crazy moves from here. I expect price to kind of drift upwards. So I guess I should, I can actually just show you instead of keep telling you everything. Just give me a second here. So here is Discord, just so you can see it. But, this morning I was basically talking through kind of what was going on in the chart. This is basically the same exact thing that you're seeing here. And then, expecting it to be relatively quiet, grind a little higher into CME Open, which is basically what happened. And the simple fact is, you know, that's typically the weekend play. That's what you see a lot. You'll get your runs to the upside. You got your run to the downside. Stop, you know, anybody who's trying to trade this mini range, likely, you know, you're getting a lot of stops on this, you know, this basically price action right here. And then we just kind of grind higher right around to where CME's closed on Friday and just wait for, you know, we're just waiting for CME's to open. So that happens quite a bit, quite often on weekends. But, you know, going to price action right now, right? So what am I looking to have happen from this zone? So that's what I'm going to talk about next. So first of all, if we do break value area high here, right? So you can see we haven't been above this value area high. So let me actually turn the pivots off for a second because they're kind of adding a bunch of lines everywhere. Just make a mental note, you know, where these pivots are. So your R1 pivot is basically right around yesterday's high. And then your S1 pivot is channel low, right? So, you know, value area high, ever since it was lost here, really nice short opportunity, by the way, like we talked about, we've come back to test it, resistance, and look at the precision, right? That's what I like. Like you see precision, this is basically exact rejections from this level. So if we're able to push up and reclaim value area high, then you're kind of looking to your next level above, which is, again, the value area low of the entire last 2 months of price actions of this level is very critical, and the top of your channel. So you have this little zone. Basically, if we break value area high, I'm looking up here. If we break, you know, because again, I'm trading very much level to level. So if I see, so again, if we push above here, we start reclaiming. So you see up here, we didn't, right? So we had a wick through, close below, rejected, price fell. I want to see price actually kind of like do this, right? Like reclaim here, start marching up, do something like that. But actually, ultimately, I want to see a breakthrough, and I want to see it. I want to see this. Like I want to see confirmation that, you know, if we do break above this, that we hold this level and then we start pushing higher. If that happens, you know, you can start looking up, you know, I'd like to see, you know, 32,800, something like that. And then if we start pushing higher from there, obviously, like we could, I think there could be a pretty killer short squeeze potential on a play like that. I think there's a lot, I mean, there's going to be a lot of, you know, we get any meaningful push out of this zone, I think we're going to punish some shorts, and, you know, we're kind of see where it goes. That's kind of to the upside, what I think could happen. To the downside, though, it gets a little bit more interesting. And the thing that I want to say is, if you look at where this mini range is taking place, well, it's kind of taking, I mean, it's not kind of, it is taking place. We're basically consolidating at the bottom of the overall range, right? And by the overall range, I'm talking this range. So, you know, May 19th, like we've been chopping around ever since. And you see things are getting real tight, right? Go back to this time frame. So again, we're kind of consolidating right at the bottom of the range. So this is it's a little, it gets a little interesting, let's just say, if we do break this mini range even to the downside. So I talked about potential upside, and I do think we could get quite a nice short squeeze. You know, does that turn into a meaningful move and ultimately helps propel us up to, you know, like mid 30K, something like that? You know, it's possible. But you know, it's kind of like one of those one step at a time, right? But I do think we could get a nice push, you know, up maybe another $1,000-$2,000 if we're able to push out of here. But to the downside, it gets a little scarier. If we start, you know, if we basically come back to test the bottom of this horizontal channel and we start losing it, you know, I think that low 30K would probably come pretty quickly. I would say, you know, probably like 30,300, something like that, maybe even a sweep of 30K. But again, it gets really, really kind of, I just say scary. I mean, like if you're bullish, you'd be a little bit concerned, right? But, you know, let's just say the excitement's going to pick up a bit. But that's, you know, I am going to do another video most likely tomorrow, talk about some higher time frame stuff. But I really wanted to focus on this range, this little mini range that we have, because it's like there's a lot going on here and there's a lot of really good things to point out. I think it's very technical. So I thought this was a really nice opportunity just to kind of point out what's happening on this mini range. So let's move on to some alts. All right, so here's Solana versus Bitcoin on the daily time frame. I picked Solana because it's one of those alts that is holding up better than most. You know, a lot of altcoins absolutely destroyed. Solana, you know, it took a beating, but versus Bitcoin, it's actually not doing too bad. You know, it's actually holding its own. So it's kind of one of those things I wanted to cover. Basically, you're sitting in this zone of weeklies, big resistance, major support. We lose the support, I think we're coming much lower. And you know, this, to be honest, this probably coincides with the flush. So like if Bitcoin loses the bottom of the range, alts are likely going to get absolutely decimated. It doesn't matter what you're in. You know, I mean, if Bitcoin breaks the range convincingly to the downside, and you know, it's very likely you're going to see altcoins just sell off very intensely. Let's just say that. Similar. Now, I don't want to say it's like May 19th. That was kind of a special day. But, you know, you could see some significant downside for sure. So that's something to keep in mind. But you are kind of consolidating here. I mean, if you were to draw, like you could make kind of a symmetrical triangle out of this if you wanted to actually draw it out. But to me, it's more about these weekly levels that I think, you know, it kind of holds a bit more merit to me. And, you know, one thing that you can do is you can throw on Ichimoku just to kind of give you a basic idea of what it looks like on this chart. And again, this is, you know, price is actually, you know, obviously in cloud. Technically, you have a bullish cross, but you see how the slope is to the downside. And it looks like in 2-3 days, you're actually going to uncross. Like it's just kind of messy, right? But let's just say this isn't something that I'm playing. You know, if anything, like you're looking like you're going to get this recross. Price is clearly in cloud, almost to the opposite edge of the cloud. You already had your test. So you see like the weekly level, how beautiful, like perfect retest, nice bounce to the upside. But, you know, the bottom of this cloud actually is like really, really close, right? So this is, you know, Ichimoku, nice confluence with this weekly SR level here. Really nice reaction off of that. But the way that it's looking at the moment, it does look like that we're going to come a bit lower for sure. So like the thing that I would be looking for, as far as, you know, if I'm looking at just strictly Ichimoku, is you don't want to see price closing below the cloud. So you haven't seen that at all on Solana at all since, you know, I mean, you're talking beginning of the year. Very beautiful entry here. For those of you who watch the Ichimoku module that I put up, you're gonna kind of have a pretty good idea as far as what this looks like. But you have not had a closure below cloud at all yet. So that's definitely something to keep your eyes on. That would probably, you know, that would probably lead me to think that we do end up breaking to the downside. And to be clear, you know, like there's probably some bounces along the way, but really, you know, the next major support that you have is really this kind of zone, this monthly and weekly. More so the monthly, but I kind of like where they're lined up. Very, you know, this would be a massive support. But from here, I mean, you're talking 50%. And again, this likely coincides with a flush, right? So on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin takes the low convincingly. You know, it's not, you don't just get another swing failed pattern or something like that. Like if Bitcoin convincingly loses the range, a lot of altcoins are going to get absolutely destroyed. And you're probably going to see targets like this being hit, which, you know, you shave 50% off of the Bitcoin pairing. I think Solana's around, so like, I think it's $26 last time I looked. So, you know, roughly like you're looking probably like a $12 to $14 Solana if that were to happen. I mean, it could get really, you know, but it could be, I would say like, if I got, you know, I would definitely be interested in looking for trades if we, you know, saw a zone like this. I'll just go ahead and say that. But Again, more so for me right now, it's this kind of immediate range that we're in. Granted that we are tightening up, but as from an Ichimoku's perspective, do not want to see closures below cloud. This is obviously going to, like, unless something changes, like we get a big spike to the upside, this is very likely going to recross bearish, which this is kind of a choppy, I don't want to say it's a non-signal, but it's not as, it's clear to me where price is in comparison to where your Tenkan and Kijun are. I mean, where this is not, a sign of strength by any means. But, if anything, like when you're in the cloud like this, it's, you're kind of like, you could be chopping around here for a while until you exit either, one way or the other. And looking at how things are again, we lose cloud, could get pretty ugly. The weekly level, very important. So it's already tested once. You got a really nice strong reaction. You could come down here, get something similar like this, right? Get a wick, another wick, test this weekly level, and could get another, you could get another reaction. It's definitely something to be monitoring. But if this level is lost, I'm looking much lower. So that's Solana. And, I guess I should give the bullish scenario too. It's really getting back above this weekly level first, right? And, obviously you'd want to see that coincide with cloud still remaining, cloud is still bullish, and you want to see price kind of break back above the cloud, get a bullish TK recross, and then like you can look for this to push higher again. But really, as far as this goes, there's not, from the Bitcoin pairing, there's really no trade to be had here until kind of one of those two things happens. The next coin we're going to take a look at is everyone's favorite, right? Dogecoin. But oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is kind of one of those charts that makes you kind of a bit concerned, So like obviously really, like, I don't need, like, everybody knows how what kind of a start to the year Dogecoin had, and made it to the top 10. As far as market cap goes, I mean, I don't remember exactly where it got to, but was it like top 4 or something? I don't know, it got way up there. But anyway, these are kind of the key levels that I am monitoring, and kind of where price is sitting right now. If I zoom in, you can see this wick low here back on April 23rd. We've come back down to test it, right? Nice bounce off of it. And we're kind of drifting lower again to test this, kind of this level here that we're seeing. As far as your value area high goes, your big range value area high, that's been lost. So that's not really a good thing, which you can see has, been a really nice level as well. And then, if this key level is lost, I really think you're going to see a pretty quick move down sub 10 cents. Let's just say that. I mean, this is, so the key level I have marked off here, which essentially is this previous, when you had to spike up, wick, price blew up through it, like, basically coming back to this level could give you a bit of a bounce. But again, this kind of coincides with Bitcoin weakness, right? Like if Bitcoin is weak, what kind of a move is this? Again, it's very much the same. So like you're seeing another, as far as like another key level, it's 50% lower than where we are. So like Solana, same thing, right? It was about 50%. You look at Dogecoin, about 50%. I think like if you were to look at a lot of different alts, it's kind of going to give you the same, like a similar picture is my kind of guess there. But this level is pretty important. If this is lost, I do think like price will drift and work its way down to sub 10 cents. And I know people who are really bullish on Dogecoin don't want to hear that, but that's kind of, that it is what it is. To the upside though, like you really want to see this value area high reclaimed, and then you can look for price to possibly push higher, right? But that's like, these are the levels as far as I'm concerned that I'm watching. Obviously we're closer to retesting this key level than we are value area high. But that's, again, these are kind of the levels that I would be monitoring. So I'm kind of curious if I go down to a lower time frame. So let's look at a 4-hour chart. So, I mean, just look at this. You got a really nice flush to the downside, but you see some, some buyers stepped in here. There's some wicks, obviously this area is defended, got to move back up. And then, you know, we kind of worked our way back down into this wick area here. And we, you know, again, we're trying, this area is trying to be defended. You can see the reaction is not quite as strong yet. I mean, if I put on Ichimoku here, just kind of curious, as I'm sure it's bearish, is like really bearish. Wow. So like, this is actually interesting. So when you got, like, look at this, right? So basically you got your bearish ticket cross, price exited cloud. I mean, we could go back and take a look. Like, we can just do a quick replay. So let's somewhere like right around here. So cloud is bearish. You're forecasting, you know, your forecasting dots are telling you that you're likely going to get a bearish TK cross, and then, you know, and this is like within a day or so. Chico span's inside cloud. It's basically inside price right here, so that's not very clear. But we kind of play some bars. Let me see what the speed is here. Make sure it doesn't go too quick. And so cloud is actually bullish, but it's probably going to flip bearish. So price is inside cloud. Gonna wait for an exit. So there's an exit, and you see cloud flip bearish. You got your bearish TK cross here, but price was still within cloud, so you're kind of just waiting to see what happens. And then let's kind of see. Okay, so like this is telling you right here, right? You got a confirmation bearish TK cross. Cloud is like super thin, kind of flip-flopping. Chico span is below price. So like this is kind of telling you, I mean, this is bearish, right? This is like, be very, very careful. If you're trying to long this, probably shouldn't be. Or nice, you know, potentially a nice short opportunity. And you let it play out. See cloud's resistance here. Tenkan resistance. Cloud is now very clearly bearish, and price starts moving lower. Like you see your angulation here. This is actually really good to talk about. So you see the slope of your Tenkan, the slope of your Kijun here, how they're angled heavily to the downside. This is very bearish, right? So your cloud is bearish. The slope of your Tenkan and your Kijun, very bearish. Chico span is below price, not good, right? So like this, you're not longing here, put it that way. Like if you're definitely not trying to long this. If anything, you're looking for short entries if you aren't already short, which you had a really good short entry here technically. Now granted, like price came back and tested your cloud here, but ultimately price rolled over. Kind of getting a little bit of a walkthrough here. But what I thought was really interesting was you start actually getting back tests. You get mean reversion. So there was actually a Kijun mean reversion here, which is a nice either short entry, so right there. So this is a really nice short entry, or if you took a short trade here and you want to add to your position, this is a really nice trade right here. Like this is a nice opportunity to compound your short. And basically when price, you get your mean reversion, rejection off of it, like this is a really, really nice opportunity here. And you can see like we just continue to go lower, continue to go lower. I mean, this is like, so this is definitely like, wow, good Chico span. Just letting this play out just for a little bit. But again, this is very bearish price action, obviously, right? But I mean, it's like when you're looking at this and you're watching this play out using Ichimoku, like, this is very bearish. So there again, you got another, this so far spike up, mean reversion. Maybe, depending where you had your stops, maybe you're out of your short now. Depending on where you had this, took this high out, possibly exited your short. Depends on like how you were managing your risk here, but either way, Kijun holds up, get your close, like you still close below your Kijun, and price just starts going back the other way. So now, again, I guess we're doing kind of a mini Ichimoku discussion here, but your Tenkan and your Kijun are flat, They do look like they're going to start angling to the downside again, but for now, your Tenkan and your Kijun are flat, which is telling you that as far as momentum goes, there's like basically there is none right now. Like there's no bearish or really bullish momentum. Like price is essentially flat. And then, you know, what you are kind of getting a signal here that your Kijun could start working its way down. But either way, looking at, you know, kind of where we bounced off of though, again, in this wick zone, you're getting close to kind of this support level that's here. So, you know, would you enter a short right here? Maybe not the best trade. Because like you obviously had better opportunities here that we took some time to identify. But that's kind of it from an Ichimoku perspective. I mean, really, like there's not, you know, as far as like, is there an entry here right now? Not really. I think if you start to see kind of more, if you break this level, likely you're going to see an aggressive, you know, continuation to the downside with Ichimoku. Then you probably have a better, you know, better odds of entering then versus right here, because again, things like momentum is essentially flat, right? You haven't seen this except for up here when it was kind of going sideways, and then price decided to start breaking down like this. When you see the slope here, better entry. This is telling you there's strength, like there's actual strength to this move. Kind of want to see the same thing here. You want to see the slope of your Tenkan, slope of your Kijun, like start angling down, giving you indication that there could be real momentum. You know, you're going to see it start trending again. That's Dogecoin. So again, we're kind of stuck in this, you know, I guess you're closer to what you could class as a support. This is not like a super strong support in my opinion though. It's very much just kind of like a, you know, again, like you've had a few touches here. We've got really nice reactions off of these levels both times. So you kind of anticipate this giving you a bit of a reaction, although we're kind of grinding down in here, right? So if this fails though, likely flips to resistance, and Dogecoin's probably headed lower. So the last altcoin that I'm going to do is Matic. I've talked about Matic quite a bit, and it's been a requested coin to discuss in Discord. I know there's a lot of people either running bots on it or trading Matic. So this is one I feel like I've talked about quite a bit. But I'm actually glad that I saved this chart because I went over this with Discord. Basically, basically right here, you have an old range, right? So you had price move up, form this sideways consolidation for a while before you got basically a real, your all-time high, big, massive push to the upside. So why this old range is relevant is, again, you have a ranging price action, you break out of this range, come back to backtest essentially your point of control before you have a massive move to the upside. I mean, if you measure this, just from this breakout to up here, 250%, right? Huge move. And that's like Matic had a much larger move overall than that. I mean, it was like insane, the run that it went on. But why you should never delete old ranges, and this is just my opinion, but I've seen this happen many, many times, is that oftentimes these ranges come back into play, right? So instead of deleting these levels, come here, use your little tool right here. Essentially, this is your object tree, right? Where you can store all of your levels. And if you can create folders. I actually did a TradingView. I did a TradingView tutorial that shows you like how to organize your chart to make it, easier. But again, really try not to delete old ranges, especially ones that were really respected. And here's a really good example why. So again, old range, price moved up, massive move to the upside, all-time high. And then on May 19th, big move to the downside. Matic wasn't immune, absolutely decimated. But where did it come down to? Well, would you look at that? Value area low of this old range, right? So first, try to zoom in for you that you can see this. Price drifted all the way down. I mean, you got, huge wick to, like, look at this wick though. Look at the buyback on that. I mean, this is insane. Ultimately moved all the way down to the value area high. Bounce. Point of control. Bounce. Value area low. So let me zoom in just so you can see this. These are literally 4-hour candles. Value area high, got a response. Lost value area high, point of control, got a response. Next candle, value area low of this old range. Literally 1, 2, 3, and then a big move to the upside. So just off of this old range, right, from your low to your high, 227% move. And where was the low? This old range. Don't delete old ranges, especially if they traded really well previously, because it could come in handy later. And I'll give you a little hint on Bitcoin. If we do break to the downside, there's an old range that we traded in for a short while, similar to Matic, and that's definitely an area that I'm going to be interested in, if that does indeed break to the downside. Going forward though, so that's Matic, and I just kind of wanted to talk about this old range. I thought it was really, this is exactly the same stuff that I shared in Discord a while ago, and I think we did a VIP live stream recently, went through all this. But I want to talk about this. This is what I most recently went through in the VIP live stream. Was you have this really important SR level here, right? Which is actually this is a daily level, but you have your daily level form. Price drops below it. Resistance, resistance, resistance. You get a move to the downside, and you have a daily level that formed here, right around this time frame, which is at $1.03, right? A little bit over $1.03. And this green support zone, essentially, that I drew here is very simply $1. Psychological whole number, $1. A lot of times you see a lot of interplay between things that are priced around $1. Like $1 is a very critical psychological level, right? If you're above it, usually, like, it's a good thing. Usually you're pretty, usually you're bullish, you're above $1. You drop below $1, it's kind of like the psychological aspect of it, right? Like people start to say, oh, like now it's not a whole number, not $1 anymore. And, so again, this is the zone, daily level. So you have your two daily levels here. Price is kind of ping-ponging, right? Into this zone, back up to your daily level, back to this daily level, can't quite make it up. And now you start kind of consolidating a little bit right in this zone, which is basically $1 to your daily level. And then you lose your psychological $1 level. Price closes below here. You even get your back test of $1. Rejection, flush to the downside. So this zone, right? This old range that we're in, big move up, massive bounce coming back out of this range. Now we're back in it again, coming back into play, right? So again, I explained you had former support that you would want to see held as support, lost, back tested multiple times as resistance, price moves lower, down to your next support zone. Ultimately, it's tested many times. Sellers overwhelm buyers. You lose your psychological dollar support level, even back test it. Now you start coming back to your old range again, value area high. What do you know? Get another reaction off of the exact same value area high, but not very, that's still a nice, if it's a scalp trade, that's like decent. But ultimately it comes back down again and you lose it. Back down to your point of control. Look at the wicks, right? You lose it, wick, kind of chopping around a little bit below point of control. And when that happens, you're looking for value area low. But how is that? An old range that formed, we weren't in it for very long, right? But it was respected very nicely. Multiple, and you're looking at like the distance, right? Between, re-entries. It's quite far, but this is why you don't delete old ranges, especially when they've traded well in the past, because a lot of times when price comes back into those old ranges, you will see it respect those levels yet again. Now, for Matic, bullish and bearish scenarios, essentially, you need to see this daily reclaimed, right? You got a bit of work to do because you have point of control, which is now technically resistance. You have value area high, which is certainly resistance. And then if it's able to kind of reclaim this, you need to, this is a very, very critical now resistance region, right? You want to see price reclaim this. And then you could, I would say if we start pushing up to this $1.25 again, it's probably going to break through. It's just my guess. But this is probably the most important resistance for me as it sits. To the downside, it gets kind of gets scarier. There's really not a lot of support at all built up below this value area low. So you can see grinding sideways, a lot of sideways, impulsive move up, range, massive impulsive move up, right? Back test here, this shows you that this is very, very strong support as far as, like on a 4-hour chart. Like this is strong support, 200-something% move to the upside, coming back down here again. So now we're getting multiple potential tests of the value area low. Gets weaker over time. If this is lost, you're really looking back here probably to this weekly level. Which, just for fun, let's take a measurement. Honestly, don't know. 54%. So, just like the other charts that we discussed, which likely coincides with the Bitcoin, breaking the range to the downside, you yet again have another critical support level that's roughly 50% from where price is. So again, across the board, if Bitcoin does break to the downside, which I know I've been saying a lot of bearish stuff, but I'm basically like, the goal of this is just to prepare people, right? If we do see that move to the downside, ultimately you're going to see altcoins probably take 50% drops. And that's just from what the technicals are saying, right? There is, like, if you look here, all right, there is not a lot of support at all built up here. We literally went from this weekly level, impulsed into this range, and like this is your support. This is where your support builds. Not like there is no support here. So as quickly as we moved up, if we lose this value area low, like we could move down just as fast. So that is something, again, this is why this value area low is such an important level. Very important. So that is Matic. So that's essentially the technical analysis. I know it's kind of a longer one, but I missed you guys. I haven't been here in a while. So I wanted to just kind of spend my night breaking down some charts with you. Now I'm going to get into, so for those of you who aren't interested in the trading bots, I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. So you can go ahead and end your session here now. I appreciate you sticking around. And again, like I do have a new VIP, a Patreon that I started at the beginning of July. If you're interested in that, there will be a link in the description below in the video. And obviously, like, you can check out the benefits, see if it's something you're interested in. Obviously, like, try to consume as much of the free content as possible. I do have quite a few free technical analysis tutorials that are coming out in the very near future. I've actually worked on quite a few of them, but the VIPs actually are getting to see those at the moment. But I am going to make them available to the public here very soon. So anyway, that is it. Let's move on to trading bots. All right, so on to trading bots. So what are we looking at real quick? Well, it's Bitcoin. Everything starts and ends with Bitcoin for the most part. It's the king. It drives the market. And obviously, there's been quite a change of behavior over the last 2 months that are very important to understand when it comes to, the trading bots and kind of how they've been operating. So obviously here we're in a clear uptrend, right? The thing that is more, the uptrend's obviously nice when you're running long bots, but much better volatility, right? I mean, you look at this impulse and move. I mean, this is like a 30% move to the downside, another big impulsive move, another big drop. Like you're getting a lot of, bots are getting a lot of work put in, essentially. Grinding higher, big move to the downside. Grind higher, big move to the downside. Even here, grind higher, Now this big move to downside, this was kind of a tougher one for a lot of people. But even still, depending like how your I guess like how overextended you were, right? Like if you were fully covered, you were probably fine. And just like I'll give you a quick story about a friend of mine who started running bots. I swear it was right around here. Was it here? Maybe it was May 12th. I don't know. Anyway, he started like right in this area, and he is running fully capitalized. He's using the same settings that, the trade alt standard settings like that you see everybody, a lot of people using. And he's been running it since this day. Well, what do you notice about this day, right around here is we literally had just the flush to the downside, right? Literally just straight down. And the thing about his bots is he's fully covered though. So that's a big difference from being, overextended. If you're overextended on this drop, you probably didn't have enough funds to cover all the safety orders necessary. If you miss safety orders, obviously that's going to make it much harder for you to get out of your deal, right? It's not going to drive your average entry down deep enough to where even if you have a crazy bounce like this, we went sub 30K for a little bit, $12,750 move to the upside. I think it was like 42% move to the upside. I know for me personally here on this move, I got out of the majority of my bots in profit. Big majority, but I was quick to mitigate risk, right? Which I've talked about before, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But essentially, like the point that I'm making is that my friend, who started at a very inopportune time, has done nothing with his bots. His bots are all operational. They're still doing their thing. I'm sure that it's slower than, it's slower than, obviously than it was previously. But the point is like being fully covered on a drop like this, he came out just fine. So, but again, the flip side is he's running fully covered, right? So he's not overextending. He's not like running some crazy 300 or 400%, overextending your capital or whatnot. But the kind of the main part that I want to make here, like the main point, is that what do you notice about the last 2 months, right? I've said this several times in Discord, several times over in the bot chat. And I haven't talked about it in a little while. So I thought it was actually a good idea to spend a little bit of time talking through like why things have been so slow, right? Well, if you notice, especially the last couple of weeks here, the volatility has died down tremendously, right? So even here, when you're getting, you're getting this oscillations from the top, from the bottom to the top, bottom to the top, like bots were doing much better here, but still less, right? Like still, like it's not like what it was, up here. And like part of the reason for that is kind of simple in a sense of like, we are not in a very clear-cut uptrend anymore. So naturally, like the market just isn't as bullish as it was up here, right? There's a lot less confidence in the market that things are going to continue to move higher. So naturally, like when you're trading altcoins, they're just not getting the same follow through that they were on this run up, right? Now, I think if you're able to clear some of these, basically if we break the range to the upside, I think there's a lot of things that are going to pick up. A lot of things are going to start running hard, especially if we can clear, I'm not going to get into like the high time frame Bitcoin analysis here on this particular one, but I do think like you're going to see things pick up pretty rapidly. The thing is, we're down here at a really critical support entry right now, like critical support. If this is lost, right? If this region is lost, you're likely going to see another move down. And if that happens, it's like I've spent the entire first part of this video giving you like potential scenarios for altcoins, like how far they could drop. That's also something to keep in mind, right? So if you're running bots, it's if you're worried about your capital, right, getting tied up, if you're worried, if you didn't do well on this drop for whatever reason, and you haven't made any adjustments, I would be very careful in case like we do break to the downside, because you're likely going to see another big flush you know, the thing is, Bitcoin might not drop that far percentage wise. Altcoins are likely going to lose a multiple of whatever Bitcoin drops. If Bitcoin drops 20%, you're going to see alts likely drop the 40 to 50%. Like they're probably going to get absolutely decimated. Being that this is like a really important support, right? I'm gonna actually delete this. You can see there's my level, 30,500. Like I'm approaching critical level. I'm gonna delete it just because I'm tired of mousing around here, and you can see it, you know, popping up. So I'm gonna actually remove it. But that's the level that I'm kind of watching right now. Is that $30,500 level? If we start drifting below that, then it gets, you know, I want to be alerted if that happens. But anyway, going back to the bots. So the point is, like, you've seen volatility slow down in the last 2 months. Specifically, the last couple of weeks has been even worse, right? Like you've seen it continue to tighten and tighten and tighten. Now, like, again, I spent the first part of this analysis talking about Bitcoin, like a mini range on Bitcoin that is literally, I think, $800 or $900, right? $1,000 range, something like that. That's just like, that's essentially where we are in the market. And it's very boring for most people, unless you're a low time frame scalp trader. Very, very boring part of the market. This is one of those markets, by the way, where we could be in for even like a considerable amount of time more going forward. Like we could be stuck in this range for another month or two. Like we don't know yet, right? But like this could be a part of the market where you just set alerts and you walk away, like enjoy, like go do something else, go trade traditional market, go trade, you know, like if you're not into trading these little mini ranges and whatnot. But it's very much the same mentality with bots. Either pull your bots, right? And I've seen a couple people do that. Like they've actually pulled their bots and they're just shut them down. And they're just going to wait for things to, you know, essentially change one direction or the other, right? And, you know, and that's totally fine. For me, I haven't changed. And like, so this is the part where I'm going to actually get into talk about a little bit what I'm doing. So I de-risk, I've said this before, made a video about it. I de-risked here. And I got the big majority of my bots out in profit, all but I think 3. And those I converted to grid bots because I just wanted, it's first science, right? I got to sacrifice some of my money just to have something to talk about. But I put a few of those bots that were deep in red bags into grid bots to see how they did. And so far, I'll tell you, very unimpressed. But that will be for a different video. Because yes, the grid bot video, I do have plans still to make that video, which is partially, again, why I'm running these. But let me take a quick sip of water. But anyway, so what am I doing? Well, for the past few months, I have been running short bots I have been running long and short bots on Bitcoin and Ethereum. So obviously the short bots have done quite well. Long bots have done quite well. Like the way that the parameters are set, you know, they've been doing relatively well. I mean, again, when you have this kind of chop, right? This is like, especially for short bots, considering like we keep testing the range lows, like those have done pretty well overall. I am still running the trade alts settings for, you know, some of my altcoins that I did talk to the VIPs about this, I think like a week or 2 ago, something like that. But you know, as far as like looking from a risk reward perspective on altcoins, and by the way, like nothing has really changed for me since video 1. And like when people ask me what are you trading? Well, I'm really only trading things that I actually want to own. You know, like I don't trade. I mean, that's not true. Like I have run Doge bots, you know, from time to time when things look, you know, appropriate. Like I should be running a bot. But, you know, I'm usually pretty quick to turn those off when I think, you know, when I look at the chart, see some stuff possibly incoming, I will shut down those bots. For the most part, I'm only running things that I actually want to own, right? So if the market went against me and I'm looking at things from a long-term perspective, I'm not super bothered by sitting in those bags, essentially. So like that hasn't changed for me. And if anything, it's even more important today than it was, from video 1 months ago, is that, when I'm, after this drop, shut down a lot of my bots, right? I think I went from 54 down to 19, or I don't remember. It was quite low. And then you see a lot of altcoins that kind of continue to move down, like, continue to move down versus Bitcoin. They look pretty weak. And some of these projects that like I'm looking to, they look kind of attractive as far as restarting, a bot on them. And the reason is simple. When you're looking at it from this perspective, right? Like, even if we were to break to the downside, then like my bots are going to be able to withstand, some of this move down, essentially. I mean, it's hard to say. I'm assuming they will, right? But I have, reopened some deals on some stuff that I like long term. I look at the price now, it looks attractive. As far as like, again, like if we were to drop here and get some volatility to the downside, which by the way, like if we get another flush to the downside, I do think we're going to get some snapbacks here and there, right? Like you're going to get, I think it could be a decent environment, although probably really scary, again, something similar to this. But I know on these days, there were some pretty big days as far as profitability went. Like you had massive snapbacks that, the bots did very well for some people, right? Like the bots did pretty well on that snapback, unless you were, depends what you were trading, depends on your capital, if you had enough money for safety orders, that type of stuff. But anyway, that's kind of essentially what I've been doing. So like, what have I been doing differently? I am running some short bots, just on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Is it a bad idea to run short bots on altcoins? No. I do think if that's something that you're wanting to do, I don't see an issue with that. But just to give you a bit of a tip, I would not use the same settings that I use. And I've seen people talk about that previously. I don't know if it's been talked about recently or whatnot, but I would not just flip the bot around and use those same settings. They're going to be much different settings. And, as far as your, the way that you structure your capital, as far as your initial base order, your safety orders, it's going to be, in my opinion, it should be much, much different than how you would structure your long bots to try to catch those dips, right? Because, you got to kind of think about what you're doing when you're shorting. Like you got to think about how you're going to weight your capital, essentially. So, it is something that you could do. Another reason why I like short bots, particularly I'm doing them on Bybit, but is that a lot of times you're collecting funding as well from sitting in the position. So that's kind of one general one thing that's nice as far as that goes. Now, obviously I'm running longs and shorts, so depending on what position's filled more than the other, it kind of washes that out. But depending on how things look, that could potentially be something that is beneficial or not beneficial, right? Like if one position's too heavy and you end up paying, funding when you're sitting into it, then that could potentially be one of the downsides to running leverage bots. But so far it's been, hasn't been an issue whatsoever, and I'm actually pretty happy with how they've done. So I've talked about short bots, which I am running a few. I'm still running the same settings on some of my bots. The settings that I shared in video 1, that hasn't changed. And I am running a few, I am running a different set of settings that I'm kind of testing right now that, I'll possibly share later on. But I've been talking to the trading bot coaches about it a little bit, and they kind of they have an idea of what I'm doing. But it's kind of something that I'm testing and see how it goes. And if it looks like it's, worth talking about, I'll talk about it later on in the future. But I prefer to test with my own money. And, it's kind of like the thing that I'll say too is that, like, people are going to say, well, you could just back test it. Well, I'll tell you, like I've said this before, but I'm not like a massive fan of back testing. Like I think you can, I would say from trading bots, it's a little more relevant because the bot is going to take the trades, right? Excuse me. But like the bot's going to take the trade. Humans aren't going to always take every trade, right? So when it comes to back testing for trading strategies, like if you're trying to back test a specific type of strategy that you're going to be using for manual trading, right? I honestly wouldn't bother, because you're not going to be around to take every single trade in order to come up with the correct statistics on whether or not that trade would work out. And you also can't take into account like your mental ability, like at the time, or your emotional, like how you're feeling when, you know, price is doing what it's doing. Are you going to take the trade? So I think like back testing when it comes to manual trading strategies, I think it's not, I don't care. I think I wouldn't waste my time doing it. But, you know, from a trading bot perspective, obviously, yeah, the bot would, you know, if the back testing is actually legit and it's, you know, it's able to calculate things appropriately, I could see some merit in it. But at the same time, you're trading history. You're trading historical price action, right? So like that in itself for me isn't necessarily worth my time. And that's just my opinion. Like people are going to disagree, and that's totally fine. But I prefer, like I pay much more attention when I actually have money on the line. And for me, like again, trading bots is kind of like I'd say it's like a hobby, but it's fun. You know, it's just a fun thing. Like I prefer to test things in real time, right? I don't want to, I'm not like super interested about back testing strategies, if that makes sense. Like when it comes, you know, when it comes to like simple DCA bots, right? But anyway, so that's kind of with it's not a new strategy, but it's just it's different settings that I've been playing around with, and I'm testing it with real money, real live trading, real price action, and just seeing how it goes. So if there's anything there, I'll definitely, you know, I'll look to giving an update on that a bit later. But it's something that's kind of newer, so I don't have a whole lot to share yet about it. So what do I see going forward? Let's kind of wrap this up. I've been talking for I think 18 minutes now about trading bots. So what do I see kind of going forward? Well, I do think that volatility is going to return. What direction right now? I honestly can't tell you. Take a sip of water. Like no one really knows, unless you're the dude making it happen. No one really knows if we're going up or down. Naturally, you have to, you know, we're at the bottom of the range. This is typically an area to long. Like this is where you want to be longing. But, you know, we've also been visiting the bottom of the range, and we've been consolidating the bottom of the range for quite a while now. And it's a little worrisome when you do see that type of price action. So I'm kind of like, if you can't tell, I'm like less confident in what's coming next, essentially. Like I'm being patient. I do need to wrap this up because my voice is like completely going. But just on a side note, I had like a 7-hour voice chat in VIP yesterday. Like I was in VIP for 7 hours talking. So like it was just, I don't know how I did it, but it's probably not a good idea. I probably won't do that again. For at least for a while. But anyway, you know, I think we're going to see some pretty major volatility soon, no matter what. So as far as bots goes, they're going to get put to work again. It's just a matter of what direction, right? Obviously, if things go higher, you expect the market as a whole to push higher, and that's likely going to, you know, provide some much needed relief for some people. Excuse me again. Yeah. But just be prepared. Because if we do end up pushing to the downside, again, a lot of altcoins probably going to take a severe beating, and like you have to be prepared for that. Like you have to make sure that you have capital allocated to that. You have to make sure that you're comfortable with the risk, and that you're, you know, like that's basically what's going to, like what could happen. It could be a very brutal ride down if that does indeed happen. But anyway, I'm sorry, I gotta wrap this up. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you have questions, feel free to tag me in Discord. You know, again, it's been a little while. I did want to spend some time talking about trading bots. Hope I gave like a bit of clarity into kind of like how, like what I've been doing and kind of how I see things right now, right? It's no surprise that things have died down a ton because we are like, the volatility has left the market. Like there is just not enough volatility in either direction to really like make bots as exciting as they were for like months and months and months before this, right? And this is natural. It happens in every market. You're going to get extreme moves to either direction, and then you're going to get periods like this of consolidation. During periods of consolidation, it tends to get boring, right? Volatility dies down. If you're running, you know, something like trading bots where you're really relying on that volatility, you're going to not be doing as well as you were when volatility was higher. It's that simple, right? So the short answer to this is to be patient. If you want to turn your bots off, you can turn your bots off. If you want to de-risk, you can de-risk, which, you know, honestly, like depending like how you like it, how you're feeling about your capital, maybe that's an option. Excuse me. Or, you know, just be prepared for volatility when it picks up, because I'll tell you, when it does, it's going to come out of nowhere. Like I think you're going to be really surprised when things pick up again. But that being said, hope everybody's doing well. Trade safe out there. We'll see you on the next one.